Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trilokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Asmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidyat Ravindam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Jai Guru. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Mark, why don't you where are we in our text?
We're on number 69, chapter 12.
Okay, we're in chapter 12, which is, if I recall, the bliss of yoga. Is that correct?
I don't know the name of it. I can't
All
see
right.
in this.
I'm looking it up now.
So what's the
The
next
bliss
verse?
of the self.
The bliss of the self. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Right.
So number 60, number 69 is the confirmed opponent who does not give up his contention due to obstinacy and hostility to the knower of truth, sinks into the depths of darkness and suffers the pains of innumerable births.
So what Vidyaranya has been working on in this section, the objector wants to hold on to the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas about the existence of the transmigrating soul and of its need to acquire merit and expiate sin. And he doesn't want to let go of that. And here Vidyaranya says, knock yourself out, we will gladly refund your misery. But the only liberation comes from renouncing identification with any personal sense of self. Well, the Vedas say blah, 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 blah. That's true. And the ritual portion of the Vedas serve people at a particular level of their unfoldment. But the Jnana Kanda, the knowledge portion of the Vedas, thunder the doctrine of ajati, unborn. Yourself is never born. It was never really trapped in the body. The self does not get liberated. What happens? My stupid mind begins to see its own fundamental unreality. That's what happens. All right, next verse.
The knower of Brahman is the nature of Brahman and is described as Ishvara. the all-powerful. Whatever he says will come to pass for the pupil and the opponent.
Will come to pass for people and the opponent, or says the opponent?
No, for the pupil and the opponent.
Yes. So the Brahman, the ground of being, my own true nature, which is birthless, changeless, deathless, is Ishvara, the ruler. Ishvara comes from the root ichati, which means to wish, to will. It's kind of like what we were talking about earlier with David. You're going to do what you're going to do. So we unfold. Swamiji used to thunder, it's an evolution, not a revolution. You can't storm heaven. Mind unfolds into knowledge in its own time. Be patient. Be patient. And we go back to the basics, Viveka and Vairagya. Constant discrimination between the real and the unreal. Brahman alone is real. The phenomenal world is not. And Vairagya, that desire to give up attachment to all experiences gained through the senses. Doesn't mean we don't act. Doesn't mean we don't perceive the experiences. We just let go. And identification with any form of self. Brahman is the self of the jnani, the knower of Brahman. Brahman is also the self of the foolish person caught in ignorance, the opponent here. Everybody wakes up in their own time. Vedanta says everybody makes it. It's the most compassionate of all religions. Even people we disagree with, even people we think are mean and awful and wrong, Vedanta says they too are the self. Coming home in their own time, in their own way. It's all okay. Next verse.
He who contemplates the witnessed self as the dearest of all objects will find that this dearest self never suffers destruction.
Yes. So this is why, especially for beginner students, I translate the word ananda as no sorrow reaches there. Physical pain gets to my body. Suffering and happiness get to my mind, depending on conducive or non-conducive situations. Certainty and doubt occur to my intellect. But nothing touches the self, me. It's always the same. This is what the Hebrew scripture means when it says, I am the same yesterday, today, and forever. Don't worry. Everything is unfolding just as it should. And the law of karma, which operates in the Jagat, in the phenomenal world, is the great disciplining law. Because if we do things that violate the law of love, we're hateful, we're vengeful, we're judgmental, we're violent, it always comes back. And it hurts. And we keep going through it until we give it up. And this is what brings peace to the mind. This is what brings peace to the mind. But always understand that whether it's negative karma, positive karma, that's only at the realm of the equipment, which is fundamentally dreamlike. And none of it ever really touches the self. Next verse.
The Supreme Self, being the object of dearest love, is the source of infinite joy. The Shruti has it that from the sovereignty of this world to position of Hiranyagarbha everywhere, wherever there is greater love, there is greater bliss.
Yes. So, in the beginning, we say, give up your attachment to worldly pleasures and turn your mind within. Well, when we get to this level of our study, what Vidyaranya is saying is, well, I have news for you. There's no such thing as worldly pleasure. The world is completely neutral. I attribute joy-giving or misery-producing qualities to it, based on the force of the past and the qualities of my mind. So the Vishaya Ananda, Vishayananda, meaning the worldly pleasure, desire, the object of desire become one. Oh, that stopped my mind. Krishna, Krishna. And that's only a momentary kiss of the bliss of Brahman. That's why he invites us to revel in the self, to practice drowning the mind in Brahma. Or the expression he used in a prior chapter, Brahmananda Rasa Swad. Swad means to taste. Rasa means the juice of the bliss of Brahman. Or we can, with facility, with ease, revel in the self. There's no end to it. It keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And then gaining pleasures with the world becomes, there's a little squirt of joy there, but not very much compared to the self. And if it takes a lot of work to get it, why bother? So men and women of knowledge frequently are seen to live pretty simple lives. They fulfill their duties, but there's no jonesing for stuff anymore. Next verse.
Doubt. If the nature of the self is bliss, as well as consciousness, bliss should be found in all the modifications of the mind, as is consciousness.
Very good question. So the three words we use to point to and indicate the self: Sat, Chit, Ananda. Sat, existence. Nobody doubts their existence. There are some Buddhists who say, I don't exist, okay? And to whom did that non-existence occur? Oh, I definitely know I don't exist. Well, who is it who knows it? You cannot ever negate your own existence. What that existence is, you may doubt. But that you are, you cannot doubt. Chit, consciousness. I know. What's your day been like? Oh, terrible. Do you know the misery of today? Boy, do I know it. I know. Is everybody's constant experience. But the fact of our experience is, I'm not always happy all the time. And if Ananda, bliss, is the nature of the self, why aren't I blissed out all the time? Why isn't everybody? Why is there suffering? Why is my mind changeable and sometimes I'm happier than others? So here, the doubter is saying, obviously the Ananda is in the world, because if it were the self, you'd be doing it all the time. Let's see how Vidyaranya answers this doubt.
Reply, not so. A lamp burning in a room emits both light and heat, but it is only the light that fills the room and not the heat. Similarly, it is only consciousness which accompanies the vrittis and not bliss. So in all experiences, there is the presence of consciousness, but not of bliss.
So I'm not sure I like his answer. The fact of our experience is, it is the mind that becomes blissful when the vrittis, the obfuscations, are removed. Just like, my favorite example is like an overcast sky. The sun in the sky is round, it's hot, and it emits light. But if down here on the earth it's an overcast sky, my experience is, oh, I cannot see the round sun and it's really cold. But what I can see is the overcast sky. The light is always there, but the overcast sky obfuscates the heat and the orb of the sun. Likewise to the mind. When the Vikshepa Shakti is happening, then I'm restless, discontent, agitated. Doesn't mean the source of bliss, the fountainhead of bliss, is not available, but it's obscured. The other great metaphors, like the waves. There's a storm and the waves are going up and down. Well, in the end, the waves are nothing but the ocean manifesting as the waves. It's consciousness itself, which appears as the agitated mind. But when the storm quietens down, the waves themselves, as it were, merge into the ocean, and it's smooth and glassy. Nobody had to come by with a chainsaw and remove the waves and cart them away. So when the mind calms down, it becomes blissful. So I prefer to translate Ananda, scriptures say bliss absolute, as the fountainhead, the source of all joy. This is why I'm so fond of this particular image of Hanuman embracing Rama. Can you all see it?
Yeah.
Yes. Hanuman's the mind. Rama's the self. The mind gains its peace in the embrace of the self. Come home, Swamiji used to say. Hurry home. Hari Om. Next verse.
An object may be characterized by odor, color, taste, and touch, yet each of these properties is cognized by one particular sense organ and not the others. It is the same with the bliss of the self.
I'm not sure what he means by that. Let's go on and see if he clarifies it.
The next one is a doubt. Odors, taste, and so forth differ from one another, but in the self, consciousness and bliss are identical. Reply, tell whether this identity is in the witness self or elsewhere. The Sakshi, where the two are identified, is not subject to perception.
Yes. Essentially, he's making it more complicated than it is. Again, we've talked about the three ways of accessing the bliss of Brahman. Vasanananda, the bliss of deep sleep. Mind is all folded up. Vishaya Ananda, the bliss I experience when I satisfy a desire. Varies in intensity, varies in duration, depending on how much I wanted the object and how successfully I was able to acquire it. But it's always temporary. And there's the law of diminishing return. One piece of chocolate is wonderful. The whole box of chocolate makes me sick. This made me happy on Monday, on Wednesday. You go see a really good movie one weekend. Do you go see the same movie this next weekend? No. But the Brahmananda, the direct experience of the bliss of the self, is not caused by something external. In fact, it's made available by the removal of attachment and identification. Now, this blissful mind comes and goes, varies in intensity, but it's always there if you want it. because wherever you go, there you are. And the knowledge that nothing is going to touch me, that is independent of even various mind states. Next verse.
The odor, color, and other properties of a flower are not separate from one another in the flower. If it be said that the separation of these properties is brought about by the sense organs, we rejoin that the seeming difference between consciousness and bliss is produced by the predominance of rajas or sattva in the vrittis.
Okay, so he's saying that the various senses that see the flower is the flower. It has its inherent swabhav, its inherent nature. But I access different dimensions of it through my various senses. But Sat, Chit, or Ananda, the self is all three, always. But I can pay attention to them variously. And there are other dimensions. I can pay attention to the birthless nature of myself, the changeless nature of myself, emptiness of myself. All these various words that point, they all point to the same thing, me. But listen carefully for what the Buddhists call the arhat, the person who's entered nirvana, or what the Hindu scriptures say about the Mahatma, the person of self-realization. When the body dies, it goes back to the gross elements. The subtle body then dissolves into the subtle elements. There's no longer any mind to be blissful. Only the self remains. When I break the glass goes into the trash. When I drink the water goes down my tummy. But what happens to the space? Does it merge into the room space? Nope. The space goes. There goes yourself. Next verse.
When there is a predominance of sattva in the vrittis, we realize, because of their purity, that bliss and consciousness are one and the same. But when rajas predominates, because of its impurity, the bliss is obscured.
Yes, so here he said it very clearly. When there are impurities in the mind, here he calls it rajas, meaning my mind is agitated, my mind is busy, my mind is discontent. My mind has this low level rumbling. The Sat and the Chit are available, but the Ananda gets obscured. But when I've let go of the rajas, my mind is sad. It is the mind that is happy. The The self is vigunaihi, beyond the gunas. Herself is not sattvic. Herself is that which knows tamas, rajas, and sattva. Next one.
As the intensely sour taste of tamarind, when mixed with salt, is lessened and tastes less sour, so with bliss when it is obscured by rajas.
Yes. So when the mind is rajasic, the ananda of myself is not available to it. Self is always there. Now listen carefully. When I have the thought, oh yes, I always exist, that's a thought in my mind. Are you sentient? Are you conscious? Yes, I am. That's a thought in my mind. Are you happy right now? Yes, that's a thought in my mind. None of those thoughts touch the self. Self is the witness of all that. To keep it simple, when the mind is under the influence of kama, craving, bliss recedes. When I let go of attachment and identification, my mind is blissful. Now, the whole point of this is for us to understand there's nothing wrong with the world. Do we experience happiness with the objects, the people, places, things, and conditions? Of course we do. But there's no inherent happiness or love in them. I only love them because of the self. All they ever do is stop my mind. Doesn't mean to avoid that. See it for what it is. And the value of owning your ananda is when the objects change, which they always do, you don't feel the loss of your bliss. So I say, own your dukkha, own your suffering. There I am wanting, controlling, defending, protecting, fighting. I'm angry. World's not behaving. Everybody's doing it wrong. It's not a moral issue. But my bliss recedes when I'm open-hearted and open-handed. When I'm accepting and non-attached. Then the vrittis calm down. And I get the Brahmananda Rasa Swad, the taste of the juice of bliss of myself. Own your suffering, own your ananda. It's never, ever, ever out there. What's the truth of the out there? Shunyata. They are empty of inequality. They are void. They're neutral. Based on the force of my past and the qualities of my mind, I think this is pleasurable. I think this is angering or resenting, etc. It's just my mind. Any thoughts? All right, next one.
Doubt. By discrimination, one can feel that the self is the dearest, but without the practice of yoga, what good is it for liberation?
So here he's saying, yes, you may have these theories, but you got to practice Raja Yoga so that you go through all this sort of stuff. And here, let's see if Vidyaranya says, yoga is a very valid path, but in the end, knowledge gained through direct experience, deep insight, works even better. Let's see what he says.
Reply. The goal which is reached by yoga can also be reached by discrimination. Yoga is a means of knowledge. Doesn't yoga arise from discrimination? Sorry, doesn't knowledge arise from discrimination?
Yes. So in the 8 limbs of yoga, first we have the moral precepts, yamas and niyamas. And we have asana, the physical postures. Then we have pranayama, control of the vital energy through control of the breath. Pratyahara, sense withdrawal, same as the uparati of the Vedantas. Now, from this point on, essentially what we learn in the Jnana Yoga tradition and the Raja Yoga traditions are virtually identical. The next stage is dharana, concentration. Learning to bring the mind to a single point. Chanting your mantra, and when thoughts and feelings arise, bring your attention back. As Swamiji used to say, put your mind where your hands are working. Stay out of the dead past and the unborn future. Be present to the intensity of now. Single pointedness of mind, dharana. We have the same practice. Next comes dhyana, meditation. The jnani also practices meditation. Various different forms in Raja Yoga. Our basic one in the Jnana Yoga tradition is Viveka and Vairagya. In meditation, discriminate between the real and the unreal. Vairagya, let go of my attachments, my identifications. As the unconscious unloads, I get to see all my defilements, my kleshas, my doshas, my defects. Let them go. Be empty. And in the Raja Yoga tradition, it culminates in samadhi, as it does for the jnani. Now, the problem for the Raja Yogi is you can go through all these practices, but unless you understand that the real problem is vasana, and if you have a good Raja Yogi teacher, you'll learn about this. You have to give up attachments. You may have some ecstatic experience, but then you open your eyes and you come back to the world and you scream and yell at people still. But for the jnana yogi, there's this deep understanding. As Shankara says in Viveka Chudamani, even after realization of the truth, even though I've had some deep experience, there exists a strong impression that one is the doer and the enjoyer, which is the cause for rebirth, meaning I get re-identified. This needs to be conscientiously rooted out through steady and continuous identification with the self. This is our Viveka. And he ends that verse by saying it's the annihilation of the vasanas here and now that's considered liberation by the wise. So those last three stages of Raja Yoga are virtually identical as the Vedanta. And if you've got a good Raja Yoga teacher, you will get intense renunciation as part of the practice. And here Vidyaranya is relying on Yoga Vasishta, which gives equal weight to both traditions. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
The state achieved by the Sankhya's is also achieved by the yogis. Thus it has been said in the Gita about the identity of the fruit of both yoga and discrimination.
So he uses Gita as his authority. The path of knowledge and the path of yoga. Gita, it's actually karma yoga that the reference is to. Doesn't matter. They reach the same place. In the tradition, we have the four margas, the four various pramanas, paths, means of knowledge. Raja Yoga, Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga. All four are valid means. And in fact, many of us practice an integral yoga. You may be led to do some asana, pranayama. You may be led to go chant the name of the Lord or go to church. Christianity's a bhakti yoga. Open your heart. Follow your intuition. You will know what you need to do. All four branches are valid. And Gita here only lists two. So when we say that the scriptures are a pramana, valid means of knowledge, it doesn't mean if I read the book, I'm going to get liberated. It means if I do the practices. So we tend to say that jnana is a non-intellectual path for intellectuals. It is the shortest path. It is the most direct path. But it's only efficacious for very subtle minds, to be honest with you. Next verse.
Knowing that for some yoga is difficult, and for some others knowledge, the great Lord Sri Krishna speaks of these two paths.
Yes. So it all depends on our temperament. So if you approach the world through your feelings, no blame. Bhakti yoga may be the best for you. If, on the other hand, you tend to approach the world through your body, my brother's that way. His way of meditating is to do Tai Chi. He's got to be moving and doing something. Karma yoga is prescribed. If, on the other hand, you like a systematized progression of things, also it's for people who are interested in power. We have the Raja Yoga tradition. But those who seek wisdom, who seek this as soon as possible, the most direct path to the infinite, and who tend to approach the world through their intellect, jnana yoga is prescribed. And like I say, personally, I think many of us do an integral yoga. Next verse.
What specialty is there in yoga when knowledge has been declared as common to both? Both the yogi and the viveki, he who practices discrimination, are alike freed from attachment and aversion. What should you what for should you consider the yogi better than the viveki? Is it because yoga gives direct knowledge, or is it because of freeing from attachment and aversion, or because it stops all dual perception?
So here he's saying again, the viveki, the one who's the discriminating person, and the yogi, the one who does pranayama, etc. The fruit of their work is the same. Now, there's a young man who's been coming to Gita, and his family's guru is in the Shivananda tradition, divine life. And they used to call that the Shivananda Yoga Vedanta path. They did both. They taught Raja Yoga. They also taught the scriptures in Vedanta. Swami Chinmayananda did those things when he was studying with Shivananda. But then when he went up the Ganges and began to study with Tapovanam, he never taught Raja Yoga. From that point on, it was always the pure Vedanta. That was his methodology. That's what he transmitted. So we are in that lineage. We're a Shankara people. We are Vivekis. All right, one more.
One who knows the self as the dearest has no love for any object of enjoyment. So how can he have attachment? And how can he who sees no object inimical to himself have any aversion?
So here is the fruit of knowledge. I say knowledge gives us two things. First, existential freedom. I'm always okay. There's nothing to fear ever. And finally, I found out where happiness is. Happiness is my essential nature. When you can revel in yourself, you can't hate like other people do. You can't love with attachment like other people do. You can let the world be as it is. Sarva Maya, Sarva Mananda. It's all Maya. It's all this. And this gives us freedom right here, right now. This is the fruit of this work. Any thoughts? All right, we'll end a little bit early tonight. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.